All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jen Espinosa-Goswami, and I'm coming to you with my special guest expert today, Dr. Nicole Byers. Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning.
I'm so excited to have Nicole here with us today. I actually was on her podcast not too long ago, the Bold Life podcast, and we had a great conversation. So I invited her to come and share a little bit about her expertise, which is all around brain health, productivity, stress personality, and all sorts of other goodies along that. So we're so excited to have you here, Nicole. Let me give a quick bio on you. Before we jump into Nicole, what she does and who she serves, I do want to let those know who are watching us live, welcome. Feel free to ask your questions below this live stream here. If you're watching the replay, you're welcome to watch it all the way through and still ask your questions. I will tag Nicole so she can answer your questions. So no matter what's coming on, feel free to weigh in. Let us know where you're joining us from. Ask us your questions. And this is a time for you to learn more about brain health. So don't be shy. If you haven't given StreamYard your permission yet, there's a quick link where you can do that so that I can see your name. But either way, we would love to hear what you want to know more about in terms of brain health. Perfect. So I'm going to jump into Nicole, who she is and what she does. So Dr. Nicole Byers is a neuropsychologist, and she's the host of the Bold Life podcast, an online educator, and the CEO of Rocky Mountain Neurosciences. Her passion is helping women overcome the mental barriers that leave them stuck in self-doubt so they can stop worrying what everyone else thinks and build the confidence to speak up, stop hesitating, and take action towards their goals. This is the perfect time of year to talk about taking action, right, Nicole?
Definitely.
She has a PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Saskatchewan. She's an adjunct research assistant professor at the University of Calgary, and she's published articles in professional journals in the area of brain health, which is why we're talking about brain health today. So that's Nicole. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here this morning.
Awesome. Well, I do have a few questions for you, and then you're going to launch into your tips around what we need to know about brain health as the average person. Most of us don't have the background that you have. So I'm very excited to hear about your tips and tricks. But first, let's talk a little bit about what led you to the work that you do.
Yeah, great question. So my background, like you said, is in what's called clinical neuropsychology, which is just a fancy word for a psychologist who specializes in brain health. And so I went to school for a million years, basically. And then I got my very first job, which I was super excited about, working in a hospital in a neurology clinic, working with people who have illnesses and injuries that might impact their brain. Things like dementia or Alzheimer's disease, stroke, epilepsy, or other neurological disorders, which is what I was trained in. So that was great. But something I noticed as I started working was that I was seeing a lot of folks who were coming in and they were complaining about, not being able to focus or not being able to remember things or being really forgetful or starting to stumble over their words. And then, we do all the tasks that we do, the tests that we do, and there was nothing wrong with their brain. And so I started thinking about, what's going on for these folks and kind of diving more into all the different factors that could impact our brain health, something from, an illness or an injury, all the way to things like changes in sleep, changes in stress, changes in the overwhelm that we're struggling with day to day. And I started doing more research on what in health we call them somatic symptoms. And those are physical symptoms that our body develops in response to stress. If you've ever, gotten up to do some public speaking and your stomach starts doing backflips, you feel like you want to run to use the washroom, you're sweating or you're shaking a little bit, those are somatic symptoms, right? It's your body's way of saying, holy moly, I'm under stress or under pressure. And these symptoms can really vary for all of us. Some of us, tend to feel stress in our gut. Some of us feel stress through tension. We notice that our shoulders are tense, we're getting headaches, and stress can also impact our thinking efficiency. So like I said, I was seeing a lot of folks through my practice that were struggling with this. They're healthy, otherwise really healthy individuals who are struggling day to day, and started to focus more on, what can I do to help these folks reduce that stress, reduce that overwhelm, improve their brain health so they're starting from a full cup and they're not struggling day to day.
Wow, that's fascinating how you came to that, and it's interesting that you mentioned those somatic symptoms, which I'm sure many of us are experiencing right now. I mean, we've been in a COVID pandemic situation for almost a year, it feels like. And so many of us may be feeling some of these somatic symptoms, just increased nervousness, fluttering in our stomach, tension in our neck and shoulders. I know I'm feeling a lot of that. So are those the right ways to determine whether your brain health is perhaps not where it should be?
Yeah, those can be a great first sign, right? Sometimes our brains will give us those signals, right? Those signals in our body and say, something's going on. I need to pay attention to what's going on around me. And you're absolutely right. This past year has been so much for so many of us. And especially when it comes to our brains are really good at handling short-term stress and short-term crises, a deadline that comes up unexpectedly, a quick change. We're really good at handling that short-term stress. We can deal with it. Long-term stress is so hard on our brain health. We don't manage it very well. It really takes a toll on our bodies and minds. So when we've been dealing with a pandemic for a year, when we've been dealing with so much uncertainty, that's taking a lot of toll. And sometimes how I like to describe it is a matter of brain resources, right? So my brain right now has so much on the go. In addition to all the normal stuff, all of the regular to-do lists, everything I have to do at work, with my family, getting things organized. Also, there's a pandemic. And depending where you are in the world, there's a lot of political unrest and a lot of uncertainty. And all of these things are just extra things taking away our brain resources. So when our brain doesn't have, maximum resources, makes it really tough to focus on what we're doing. We get distracted, we feel burnt out, we feel exhausted, and all of that can impact our brain health.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think we're all kind of understanding on some level that is happening. But the way you lay it out, it's very easy to understand. Oh, okay. Here are some warning signs that I might be experiencing. And maybe we'll talk a little bit more about how we can deal with that. Before we jump into that, who do you most love to work with?
Who I love working with are folks who know that they want to make a change in their life, whether it's in terms of their health, in terms of their career, in terms of their relationships, and they're motivated to make that change, but they just don't quite know where to start. Because in terms of our brains, if we want to change our habits, if we want to change and set goals that we actually stick to, unfortunately, motivation is really just not enough to keep us going forward, right? That's why most New Year's resolutions fail by February, is that being motivated isn't enough. But it's really important to start with that motivation. So someone who's, wanting to change, recognizes here are some areas I can improve in my life, and, really wants to dive into those step-by-step processes that can get us there.
Awesome. And how long do you typically work with people?
So it really depends. I have a few different areas of my business right now. So I still do a lot of assessment work, which is work with people who are struggling with their memory, are struggling with their concentration. So they would come in kind of for a one-time session with me. We would do some strategies and work on some different tasks to really understand what's going on in terms of their brain health. And then I also do some online teaching and online courses that can range from, a few weeks to a little bit longer.
Perfect. And I understand you're going to be sharing with us one of your courses upcoming in just a few short weeks. So I can't wait to hear more about that. You also have a free resource that you're sharing with everyone today. It's called the Stress Personality Quiz. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
What is your specific stress personality?
Yeah, great question. So I am definitely a recovering perfectionist, is where I will come out on there. For me, I really focus on details. I really like to do things the right way, so to speak. I, tend to put a high level of pressure on myself to really meet certain standards. And while that is a really admirable quality, it works really well for so many of us in a lot of situations, unfortunately, that can lead to a lot of burnout. Perfectionists like myself tend to have that never-ending to-do list. We obsess a little bit about working on projects, so things take a little bit longer than they should. And all of that, again, is taking away our brain resources.
Yeah, and I can relate to that. I don't know that that's my personality yet. I haven't taken it, but I do work with a lot of people who also fit that profile of it's got to be just so, it's got to be perfect before you can take action on it or before you can release it to the world, if you will. I work with a lot of women who seem to fit that profile. So I'm curious to see what I would turn out with this quiz. It sounds like a fun thing to try. I'm a big quiz nerd. Like I've done pretty much every quiz you can possibly
Nice.
take.
Yeah.
So I love that you have a quiz that we can check out and see where we fall in terms of our personality. So one of the things that came up when we were talking before this interview was that there's a connection between confidence and stress. And I'm really curious about this because I'm also releasing some coursework on confidence. So I want to hear your take on this. What do you see as the connection between confidence and stress?
Yeah. So again, I see this connection in terms of our brain resources. So say I have a lot on the go right now. I have that never ending to-do list with 50 items on it. Say I'm worried about projects at work. I have stuff going on at home. I'm dealing with a worldwide pandemic and shutdowns. All of these things, again, are pulling resources away from my brain. So we start out with so many resources during the day, and all of these decisions that we have to make, all of these things we have to deal with, from the really simple things like what am I going to have for breakfast today, to the more complicated things like how am I going to deal with this project? What am I going to give as an answer to this client? How am I going to deal with my kids who are having some stress at home with distance learning? All these things pull brain resources. And so our cup starts to get depleted. And when we're working from that point of depleted mental resources, it gets really tough to make decisions. So we start to struggle to be decisive. We hesitate more. We procrastinate more. And unfortunately, all of these actions impact our confidence. So if I am burnt out, if I am feeling overwhelmed, if I'm feeling uncertain, it's really hard to act with confidence. I start to doubt myself more, which unfortunately makes a bit of a spiral where all that doubt and uncertainty drains more brain resources. I feel more tired, more uncertain, and I can really get stuck in that place of just hesitating, constantly scrutinizing myself and second guessing my decisions and really feeling unable to act in so many areas, leading to a real low confidence.
I love that you shared that it's a matter of how it shows up in terms of low confidence is that another, and you just can't decide, like you're stuck, you're not sure where to go, or you procrastinate, which I mean, many of us can relate to procrastinating, maybe some of us more than others, but when it's the default decision to procrastinate and put it off till tomorrow, then that's probably a good indication that we're not feeling terribly confident in the actions that we want to take. So thank you for clarifying that. Perfect. Well, I will let you go ahead and share whatever tips you have in terms of feeding our brain health so that we have more energy, our resources are all full and our cups are ready to go, and we are just feeling so fueled and energetic for the day. Go ahead and share with us your tips and tricks for that.
Sure. Like you said, the best place to start is those activities and those tasks that we can do to start with that full cup in terms of energy and in terms of brain resources. Things that seem, simple, but really aren't, like getting enough sleep every night. So especially when that to-do list gets long or we have a lot on the go, sleep tends to be one of those things we sacrifice, right? So we're staying up a little bit later to try to get things done. We're getting up a little bit earlier, or even if we are going to bed, we're laying there in bed and thinking about the 400 things that I need to get done tomorrow, right? And not really sleeping very well. And we know in terms of brain health, in terms of productivity, that if we're getting less than that recommended 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, our productivity goes down. So our thinking isn't as efficient. We have trouble with memory, with concentration. We have trouble problem solving when we're not getting that much sleep. And they've even done some research on groups like doctors where they're sleep deprived. And after a few days of not sleeping very well, it's almost like they're drunk in terms of their thinking skills because sleep deprivation has that much of an impact on our thinking efficiency. Right? Which makes sense. We've all had those days, right? Where we have a really horrible sleep and you wake up and you feel just awful and groggy and you're sluggish and I'm stumbling over my words all day and I can't quite make my fingers connect with the keyboard properly, right? That's, one of the biggest drains I find in terms of starting from a full cup with brain health is people are sacrificing sleep. And I totally get it. Like I said, I get that the to-do lists are never ending. I get why we feel like if we just do more, that's going to be better. And it really is a bit of a mindset shift that I'm still working on too. Like I said, recovering perfectionist over here, that sometimes taking those breaks and prioritizing things like sleep are really important for our efficiency. And that's, again, a bit of a tough shift to make, because we feel like if we just keep working, if I'm working 20 hours a day, then I'm going to get more done than someone who's working 8. Not necessarily. Actually, once we're working more than 50 hours a week, our productivity really starts to decline and we're not that efficient anymore. So resist that urge to keep going without taking a break. Get some sleep. Another thing that can really fill that energy cup, fill your brain resources, is keeping your body healthy. So our brains and our bodies are very connected. Anything that's good for our physical health is going to be good for our brain health. So eating regular meals, eating healthy foods, drinking enough water, exercise. I know everyone exercise, yay, right? But for real, for brain health, exercise is one of the best things that we can do for our brains. And it doesn't have to be, running marathons like you do, right? Even 20 minutes of moderate intensity exercise is great for our brain health. So that's a brisk walk where you bring your heart rate up a little bit. It's playing outside in the park or on the snowy hill with your kids for a few minutes. Anything that gets your heart rate up, gets your body moving, really great for your brain health, and actually can improve things like your sleep quality. It's going to improve your thinking efficiency as well. So in addition to having more energy, you're going to get more done, which is great.
I would love to talk a little bit about the connection between exercise and sleep, because that's something that I have personally experienced, and I know a lot of my clients have as well, but there's the concern, right? Like there's these guidelines: don't exercise like within 2 hours before you're going to go to sleep. Don't exercise at this time, or this is the best time to exercise. And if you're not a morning person, you're like, I'm not going to do it. Do you have anything to respond to in terms of like the best time to get that exercise in to help you to sleep better?
Really, the best time is when you're going to do it. Right? Like, sure, there are probably some ideal-ish, I say ish because there's always some, counter evidence that says this time is better, right? But, say you're not a morning person and all the evidence and all the researchers is saying, get up in the morning and exercise. If I am not a morning person, this is never going to happen for me. Like, I know I am not a morning person, and there's no way I would ever exercise in the morning. I tried it a few times and it was not fun, right? So then my brain says, I don't really want to do this anymore. So you lose that motivation and you don't follow through. So if the best time for you is to go for a walk on your lunch break every day, then that's the best time to exercise in terms of your sleep, wherever you can make it consistent. Definitely if you're exercising right before you go to bed, like you're running, 5 miles and then you're trying to go directly to sleep, it's probably going to be a little bit tough. But if you give yourself a little bit of a break, even if you exercise in the evening and give yourself some time to cool down and relax, that's going to be fine in terms of your sleep.
Awesome. And then do you have an opinion? What I've been hearing from a lot of my mom friends, if you have young ones at home during the pandemic, you're sheltered in, you can't go to the park, you can't let them have physical outlet for themselves, which makes you even more exhausted. Do you have, like, some people are like, well, I'm just going to take a supplement to help me sleep, or I'm just going to do this to knock myself out because I'm so overworked and so overwhelmed. Do you have an opinion in regards to supplements for sleep?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Supplements aren't super my area, so I'd always recommend talking to your pharmacist. It's a great first place to start. But here are kind of some of my hesitations with supplements. One, just be careful what you're taking. Again, talk to your pharmacist. Depending where you are, supplements aren't always very regulated. So what's in the supplement might not be what is advertised. So be careful with that. Also, if you're taking any other medication, sometimes supplements will interact with those medications. So again, touch base with your pharmacist. And then in terms of sleep, the sleep doctors recommend things like melatonin or other things to help with sleep. And there seems to be some evidence that that's helpful. If it works for you, great. In general, supplements tend to have lower risk of dependence than a prescription sleep aid medication. I always caution against long-term use of any prescription medications to help with your sleep because it's really easy for our bodies to become dependent on those. And usually they only help you fall asleep. They don't help you stay asleep, which is the struggle for a lot of people, right? So I'm falling asleep and then I'm waking up groggy and not feeling that great. Does that kind of answer your
Yeah,
question?
thank you. And
Yeah.
that's an important distinction because some people have the kind of troubled sleep where they can't fall asleep, but then other people wake up frequently. So you brought up a good point that some of those supplements might help you fall asleep, but then you wake up more frequently. Just like I've heard that, like if you drink alcohol before bed, it might help you fall asleep if you get tired when you drink alcohol, but it also might make you wake up 3 or 4 times in the evening, which kind of defeats the purpose of, trying to get a good
Totally.
night's sleep. So that's a really good thing to be aware of. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of sleep for our brain health. We've talked about the importance of physical activities like how we're eating, how we're exercising, drinking enough water. Do you have any other tips in terms of how we can feed our brain?
Yes. So your brain also likes to stay active, just like your body likes to stay active, right? We're designed to move, our brains are designed to be used. So doing things that challenge your brain, and again, that doesn't have to be something super hard, like, for example, hobbies that you enjoy doing, if especially if you enjoy a hobby that uses different skills. Let me think. And crafting hobbies, for example, if you're doing crafts with your kids, that actually requires a lot of mental skills. You're kind of planning the craft, you're trying to figure out where everything goes together, you're playing with your kids at the same time, which requires language skills and problem solving skills, and really great. Sewing, knitting, lots of folks are good at those. I am not, but respect to anyone who is. Other activities, reading, recreational reading is another one of the activities we have the best support for maintaining our brain health. People who read regularly tend to have healthier brains as they age. So if you're going to do nothing else, go to the library if they're open, or lots of libraries have online access right now as well. Download some books and get reading.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing is that you're sharing that having some sort of hobby that makes you use your brain. You have to think through the materials you need. You need to plan it out. You need to do the hands-on if you're doing a craft with your kids or if you're reading, which is also, I found out that that was one of the big resolutions that show up in the last few years is reading a book a month or something like that. A lot of people are setting goals and resolutions around how many books they read per year, which I think that's a really encouraging thing. I'm a big reader
Yeah.
myself,
Too.
but it's good that you say that that's good for our brains. Like, a lot of us know that TV is the boob tube. It's not good for our brains or whatever. So if you can take like a half an hour and get away from your TV time, but maybe read something interesting to you, that's a good way to relax and maybe sleep better. But it's also a
Mhm.
good way to use your brain and think through some things, and it's not taxing. So if you're like, I'm physically tired, I don't want to exercise, but I'll just read
Mhm.
like a Bible or something, whatever works for you. I think that's a really important thing to bring up. What is your favorite hobby to do?
I am a big reader as well. I have probably too many books on my end table right now that I intend to read. We'll see how many I get through. I do lots of crafts. I have a 3-year-old as well, and she loves crafts. I used to do more artistic hobbies. I used to like to paint. Unfortunately, right now I got this small human that draws a lot of my attention. So we paint together, but it's a little bit different than my pre-children hobbies, that's for sure. But reading is definitely my go-to right now. I love reading as well. I love reading anything from, fiction to, business related books. I read a lot about mindset and how we understand our behavior and our brains, of course. It's what I do. And I love reading.
Awesome. One of the things I've been doing more since pandemic hit, I mean, I always craft. I have 2 girls, so we've been crafting since they were like 2 years old. And sometimes I get tired of crafts. I'm not the biggest crafting person myself, but I do adult coloring and what's
Mm,
called paint by sticker. So it's like actually you're coloring using pre-cut stickers that you place into
cool.
certain areas. It's very analytical, I guess, and geometric and puzzle. I think I paused. I apologize.
That's okay.
Okay. Well, I know we have about 5 more minutes, and I know you've got lots of more good things to share. So, what else would you like to share with us?
Yeah, in terms of brain health, one thing I would say too is watch out for things that are going to drain your mental resources. We talked about stress already as a big one that drains our mental resources and leaves us starting from a less than full cup. And sometimes we're not totally aware that we're under stress and pressure. So, like we talked about earlier, watching out for those physical signs of stress is a great place to start, but also watching out for feelings of fatigue, exhaustion, overwhelm. Those are really great signs that your brain is under stress or pressure and is taking on too much. And as hard as it is to pull back, often pulling back and giving yourself a bit of a mental break is a great way to boost those resources again. And breaks don't have to be huge things. It doesn't need to be like going on vacation for 2 weeks. We don't all need that all the time. It's great when you can get it, but we don't need to think about breaks like that. Even if I'm starting to feel anxious or stressed, if I'm getting tense, if I'm getting frustrated, that's probably a sign that my brain needs a little bit of a break from whatever it is I'm working on. So even something as little as a 5 or 10 minute break, get up, go for a little walk around your house, go put some dishes away, do whatever it is to get your brain away from that focus for a while can actually really improve our efficiency. Because what happens for our brains is when we're thinking too hard about things, sometimes it makes us less efficient. And we've probably all had that experience before where you're trying to come up with the name of a person. Maybe it's an actor or someone else like that. And you're like, oh, I can't quite remember it. And then you're standing in the shower the next day and you're like, oh yeah, that's this person that I was thinking of, right? And that's because our brains get a little bit burnt out when we're trying too hard to think about something. So if you're focused too much on a project, you're feeling frustrated, taking that break can actually boost some of those brain resources, come back a little bit more refreshed, try again is a great strategy.
I love that suggestion, and I see it happening all the time. I actually encourage it for my children as well. They're distance learning from home, and they just get so completely frustrated because they don't take those breaks. So I set up different stations that they can take physical breaks. Like, here's a YouTube video, or here's a punching bag. If you need to punch the bag for a little bit, go ahead and do that. So like just giving them the space and time to do that, because kids have a harder time self-regulating. But
Absolutely.
as adults, I think we also get into the grind, right? We're like, I have to finish this. I have to get through this. And sometimes it feels more urgent than it really is to us in the moment. So it's a really important reminder to take those breaks, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes. I tell people, stretching break is fine. If you don't anticipate being able to get to exercise for that day, it's fine. Just take a stretch break, get that blood moving, get that circulation going. And like you said, it can help refresh us as well. And sometimes help us remember things that we were stuck. We just couldn't remember that information. So thank you for sharing that. I know you said that you have an upcoming thing you would like to invite people to.
Yes.
I'd love to hear more about it.
Yes. So I have a free workshop coming up. The first session is next Tuesday, the 12th. And the workshop is how to stop worrying so much about what everyone else is thinking. And it's the 3 keys to stop constantly hesitating and procrastinating so you can take confident action. And what I'm going to be talking about in this workshop is one of those stressors that burns a lot of our brain resources. And that's when we get stuck in that cycle of worrying about everyone else, worrying, if I do this or I say this or I try this thing, what's my family going to think? What are my friends going to think? What if I mess up? What if I do this wrong? All of that burns a lot of resources and can really keep us stuck. Again, because our confidence goes down. Like we talked about earlier, we hesitate, we procrastinate, and we don't make those changes in our lives that we want to make. So I'm offering this workshop. Like I said, it's free. I can send you the link. So you can post it to sign up, but there's just a pop-up on my website right now as well. If you head on over there, drnicolebyers.com, sign up for the workshop. It's going to be really great. I'm excited.
Awesome. And I have shared Nicole's social media profiles, and I believe the website was on there as well. So feel free to connect with her. I will post the direct link to her workshop, her webinar, How to Stop Worrying About What People Think. If that resonates with you, for sure, check it out, because she has a lot of great information for you. And I know I have people in my family that are constantly worrying about what other people think. And I wish I could help them. But sometimes when you're so close to someone, they don't want you to tell them what to do. So it can be a difficult place to be in. If you know someone who struggles with that, please invite them to this event. It's a free event, like she mentioned. And I'm sure she'll have a wealth of information for all of you. Thank you so much for sharing that. So if there's one thing you could leave us with today when it comes to our brain health, what would that be?
That would be to keep in mind that your brain has limited resources. So anything you can do to boost those resources, keep your brain and body healthy is going to help. And getting rid of those things that are zapping your resources is going to keep your brain the healthiest possible.
Awesome. Let's make sure we're feeding our brains, not just our bodies, friends. You heard it here from Dr. Nicole Byers, who is the owner of Rocky Mountain Neurosciences. This is kind of what she does, folks. So don't forget to connect with her. It has been a pleasure to have you here this morning, Nicole. I'm so glad we connected. And thank you so much for taking time to share this information with us this morning.
You're very welcome.
All right. Have a good one. Happy weekend.